Venus. Now, Venus's name in Sanskrit is Shukra. An excellent mantra for Venus is Om Shum Shukraya Namaha. And whenever you're chanting mantras for Venus, you want to begin them on a Friday, ideally as close to the full moon as possible. And with all mantras, you want to have a real sense of devotion, a sense of honor, and a sense of respect. So think about people that you might honor and respect, or times when you felt a great sense of awe and reverence. And when you practice the mantra, generate that feeling, generate that state as you practice the mantra. In your mind's eye, it can be helpful to visualize Venus. And so that can be either visualizing this image that we have over here, or one thing that I like to do is just go outside and take a look at Venus in the sky. Venus is one of the brightest stars. So if you do locate Venus, either in the evening or in the morning, depending on what time of year it is, then just notice the brilliance of Venus and remember that. And when you go into meditation, see that point of light, that radiance, and as you chant the mantra, Om Shum Shukraya Namaha, with that sense of reverence and devotion, imagine, feel a sense of connection with that light. And you can let that light grow stronger and brighter in your awareness if that happens naturally for you. Now, Venus is a planet that deals with harmony, balance, form, and beauty. Venus is also a planet that deals with making good decisions, decisions that lead to higher fulfillment. So if you know someone who has difficulty appreciating harmony and balance, has difficulty with diplomacy and tact, has difficulty with women, has difficulty making choices that lead to their highest fulfillment in the long run, it could be that there's some difficulties with Venus. And what do I mean by choices that lead to highest fulfillment? Well, consider people that you know who are always getting in relationships. They're always getting involved with the wrong person. Or when they make a purchase, they always make a purchase based on something other than, I don't want to use the word practicality because Venus does deal with luxury, but let's say they end up buying vehicles that are too expensive for them. So in the long run, it might be a nice vehicle, might be a luxurious vehicle, but it doesn't lead to higher fulfillment down the road because they went beyond their means with it. So with Venus, when Venus is strong, the person naturally knows what to do in a situation when a choice is given to them that will lead to highest fulfillment. Venus isn't like Mars, obviously. Mars is a planet that kind of can thrive on conflict and can thrive on having to take the initiative. Venus is more interested in bringing peace to situations. So there's an aversion towards discord or conflict. People with a strong Venus, a healthy Venus, they won't really be interested in conflict too much. They want to make sure that everyone has a sense of fairness within any given situation. Venus gives an appreciation for color, form, beauty, gives a love of the arts. It can make a person interested in the arts, benefit from the arts. Venus doesn't necessarily give skills in the arts. Mercury is one of those planets that gives skills in the arts, the ability to use your hands or to use whatever is around you to make something beautiful. So Mercury is more of the technical skill, but Venus gives the appreciation for it. So if we get a good Mercury and a good Venus, not only might we have a very good artist, but we have one who also appreciates the arts very well too. Now, when Venus is in bad situations, that can make a person lazy, indecisive, dependent on others. There can be too much sensuality, too much self-indulgence. A person can be too romantic, and this can get in the way of making good decisions again. So Venus does give romance. Venus does give luxury. But it doesn't give it, when it's good, it doesn't give it in a way that causes problems later on. So always remember that. Problems with Venus, the romance, the luxury might cause problems later on. A good Venus, they understand where the place of romance, where the place of sensuality is, where the place of being dependent on other people, where all this fits in. But not everyone has a perfect Venus, just like not everyone has a perfect planet. So there will be times when a person can become overwhelmed by other planets and therefore make a bad decision. And there can be times when Venus, just by its very nature, by transit or so on, might be very good. So this brings us to the idea that when it comes to judging a chart, or when it comes to judging timing or what someone's going to do, where the planet is and the situation of the planet will give the average of how a person will act in a given situation. Depending on the dashas, the transits, that can show maybe sometimes Venus is in a bad spot, and so the person makes bad decisions. Or maybe Venus is extremely well supported, so the person makes very good decisions. So always remember this, when you're looking at a planet such as Venus, judge the how it looks in the chart overall. That'll give you a good idea of across the board, how is this person going to act with Venusian things. Now Venus is typically associated with love, romance, marriage, happiness, wealth, enjoyment of life, and the good things in life. Venus is representative of conveyances, such as cars, boats, vehicles. Venus can give charisma. Venus on the first house, Venus with the ascendant lord, with the Atmakaraka, as the Atmakaraka, can give good charisma. Venus also gives good taste, meaning that when it comes to life, they have refined tastes. When it comes to interacting with others, they're tasteful. The person also has tact. Venus represents the sexual fluids, and so having a strong Venus can make a person enjoy sex more. It also represents the marriage partner within a man's horoscope, or it represents the marriage partner in the horoscope of a person who likes women. We'll put it that way. Now, when Venus influences the 10th house or the 2nd house or even the 1st house, this can influence the vocation. Venus deals with fashion, beauty, the arts, music, sensuality. Venus can make a person a massage therapist. Venus can make a person a stripper, a dancer. Venus can make a person a prostitute. Now all this depends on how Venus is situated, but Venus is influencing all of these areas of life. And we have to look at the situation of Venus to see which way is it going to go. If Venus has more of a 3rd house influence, which could be dancing, well, then the person might be more involved in dancing. If a person has more of an 8th house influence, well, then the sexuality might come out more, such as being a stripper, an exotic dancer, or even a prostitute. Now, we don't want to make hard and fast judgments in this regard. We need to look at the chart in general. Always remember that. You got to look at the chart in general. I get a lot of questions saying I have this planet here, or Venus is in this situation, so obviously this must mean that, or what does it mean? You can't just look at one planet. You have to look at all of the planets. You have to see what kind of person is this. Once you know what kind of person this is, overall, going through all the houses, all the planets, then you have a better chance of seeing which way is Venus going to go. How is it going to influence this person? When Venus is strong within the chart, it makes a person fertile and attractive. It can make a person's sexual hormones stronger, also their pheromones stronger, which is one of the reasons why they become more attractive. Venus gives beautiful features and a well-proportioned body, usually large eyes. And as I mentioned previously, if it's too strong, it can make a person excessively sensual. And if it's in a male's chart or a man's chart, it can make a man a little too feminine. And again, it doesn't really matter one way or the other if they're feminine, but just when you're considering someone, if you're doing a rectification, or if you're trying to see how the chart lines up, if you're looking at a man's chart and there's a prominent Venus, there could be more of a feminine nature towards this person. Now, Venus owns the signs of Taurus and Libra. Venus is exalted in Pisces and has its fall in Virgo. The element of Venus is water and air. So Venus deals with Kapha and Vata, water and air. So whenever you're considering Venus, remember that. Now, let's consider Venus in regards to some specific things that Venus can represent, meaning that when you're looking at the chart, when you're looking at the horoscope of an individual, you want to see what is the state of this person's wife or daughter. What is the state of this person's tastes, their sensuality, their capacity to appreciate music and beauty. That'll all be indicated by Venus. So Venus rules the wife within a man's chart, or again, as I mentioned, it rules women as a partner in the chart of anyone who's attracted to women. Venus rules daughters. It rules the arts, and again, the appreciation of color, music, and form, harmony, and beauty. Venus rules the beautiful aspect of music, the capacity to move a person through music. So not necessarily the technical side, but more the emotional impact that music can have. Strong Venus with a musician can allow that person to really move someone. Venus rules dancing. It gives a love of fashion, perfumes, and pleasing fragrances. Venus can make a person a beautician or cosmetologist, someone who helps to beautify others. Now Mars usually has to be involved in that as well, especially someone who cuts hair, like a barber, or a stylist who cuts hair using sharp objects, but Venus gives the capacity to do it well. Venus can make a person an interior designer, interior decorator, working in the fields of sensuality. The colors of Venus are typically white or pastel colors. Venus gives attractive features. Venus can also indicate sexually transmitted diseases, and it rules the southeastern direction. Now, the interesting thing about Venus, as with many planets, wherever it's placed, that can show where a person has beauty within their life, or what part of their body is beautiful. If you get Venus in the second house, well, the person might have a beautiful lips, or a beautiful mouth, or a beautiful face, because there's second house things. Third house, that can deal with the shoulders and the arms, and even the hands, so that can show a person who has beautiful hands. And I bring this up so that you can start considering this, and this will make more sense to you when we get into the houses, when we talk about what body parts each house rules. But for example, for Jupiter, Jupiter makes things bigger. So if we have Jupiter in a particular house, then that particular body part ruled by that house will be bigger. It's in the 12th house, it can give big feet. It's in the first house, might make a person appear to have a bigger head, or more prominent features within the face. Arms can be bigger if Jupiter is in the third house. And you don't want to take this as the end-all, be-all, because there are many things to consider. For example, if someone has many planets in one house, 4 planets, 4 or more planets in one house, whatever house or sign that represents, that body part can be larger. So we don't want to just say Jupiter's in this position, so therefore this body part is going to be large. This is just a rule that you can use with many of your other rules. All right. Now, Venus is our ability to recuperate, which means that if you're an athlete, or in any kind of situation where you have to, where you tear down your body either through exercise or through other extreme activity, if you've got a good Venus, you recuperate quicker. So a good Venus makes a better athlete because they're able to recuperate quicker, heal quicker. People who go to the gym all the time and really work their body hard, who have a bad Venus, they might actually be tearing their body down more because Venus doesn't have the time to recuperate. Someone who has a robust Venus can go to the gym more often, or can work out more often, or can do more stressful things more often. So we're not all similar in that way. Venus is our DNA. In Vedic myth, Venus Shukra represents semen. But really what that means is the transmission of DNA, or transmission of the genetics. So good Venus, our DNA is strong. Difficult Venus, our DNA might have some issues with it, some problems with it. Venus represents the tissue of the muscles. So this is again why being an athlete, having a strong Venus, can help you build your muscles. It gives good form to the body. Venus, and particularly the signs that Venus rules, shows our ability to digest food, so the digestive tract. The digestive tract in regards to its capacity to absorb nutrients. So good Venus, you absorb nutrients well, which is why some people who have a really wonderful Venus when they eat, they absorb the nutrients very well, and they might be a little heavier or more meaty than someone else. Why? Because their body is utilizing the nutrients better, versus someone who needs to eat a lot just to stay thin. Why is that? Because their body isn't utilizing the nutrients well. So there's many different reasons as to why someone might seem a little more overweight or skinnier. There's some different planetary combinations, and so it's recommended that if someone has a good Venus, they need to eat a really healthy diet, and they also need to work out more. That way that they're utilizing what they're eating. Otherwise, what happens is you can have a healthy individual with a strong Venus, and they seem pudgier or flabbier or just a little stockier than the average person, and they might attribute that to being fat or overweight, when really it's just because their body's working well. They're absorbing the nutrients and putting it into the tissues well. So if you've got a good Venus, you do need to work out more. Venus deals with jewelry, art, entertainment, as I mentioned, massage, romance. Venus also rules pools of water. Venus rules students. So you want to see the students in your life? Look at your Venus. Venus represents the conjugal bond, so that bond between partners, that more intimate bond between partners. If you had a good Venus, then you connect better with your partners. Venus rules the mistress, the wife, women, vehicles, and diplomacy. So again, all these are things that you want to consider based on Venus's placement within the chart. Now, let's look at Venus in the houses. All right. So Venus in, ruling, influencing the first house. This shows the strength of the body, the recuperative ability of the body, also the beauty and form of the body. That's what the first house represents. In the second house, Venus represents food and wealth through beautiful things like jewelry. In the third house, Venus represents the father-in-law. In the fourth house, Venus deals with pools, lakes, and vehicles. Venus in the fourth, that can sometimes get someone living near water or having a pool or needing to have a pond or a lake around, so there's more water involved within the home environment. And Venus also shows the state of one's vehicles. The fifth house. The fifth house deals with romance. It deals with affairs, romantic affairs. And the fifth house also deals with students when in relation to Venus, or related to Venus. The sixth house can deal with nursing, the ability to provide physical comfort to other people, or the kind of comfort that we get when we're ill. In the seventh, ruling the seventh, aspecting the seventh, Venus is going to influence, again, the wife or women in a relationship with someone who's attracted to women. It's going to give information about the mother's mother, so the grandmother. In the eighth, as mentioned previously, Venus deals with the conjugal bond between partners and also sex in general, so views about sex, experiences within sex, sexual matters. In the ninth, Venus deals with the father. Again, dealing with genetics, it's the genetics passed on from the father, from that line, that lineage. And Venus is said to represent the father. The sun represents the father, the moon represents the mother, Venus represents the father, and Mars is also said to represent the mother. So sun and Venus, the father, moon and Mars, the mother. You probably want to look at Ernst Wilhelm's courses on Gemini for that. Can't really go into that in too much detail, but there's a reason for that, and it's a Gemini influence. In the 10th house, influencing the 10th house, ruling the 10th house, Venus rules or influences the mother-in-law. In the 11th, Venus deals with the fair distribution of wealth. It can also show how we might be able to get wealth or finances through Venusian things, gains through Venusian things. The 12th house, Venus deals with nursing homes, the mistress, mother's father, the mother's father, and also vacations, retreats, things that we go on luxury adventures, I guess you could say. So nursing homes, the mistress, the mother's father, and also vacations or retreats. The primary Varga that Venus is important for is the Navamsa. In the Navamsa, it's going to show our capacity to be devoted to our path in life, or devoted to our marriage, or to our marriage partner. It shows our capacity to make choices that support our path in life, our dharma. And again, our marriage partner, our commitment to the marriage. Because when Venus is strong, we can be devoted. And when we're devoted to something, we believe in it, we find satisfaction through it. So even when things get rough or things get difficult with a good Venus, we're devoted. We realize that the suffering is worth it. When Venus is not so good, then the littlest thing can bother us. If things aren't working out exactly as we want them to, then we give up and we change paths, or we change partners, or we drop our commitment. So whereas Venus is our ability to be devoted to something, and Saturn is our ability to endure through the difficulties, it's really Venus that gives us the capacity to appreciate the whole process, meaning that we see that it is worth it because we love this thing so much. And you can consider that within your life. Think about the things that no matter what, when things go wrong, you still find meaning, you still find that it's important to do this certain task, or to be with this certain person, or to explore this certain direction in life. Not everyone has that. A lot of people give up when things get rough. But if you have a particular area where that's the case, where no matter what, even if things go wrong, you're still committed, you're still devoted, it's still worth it to you, check your Venus. Venus is probably influencing that area of life. Okay. Next up, we will take a look at Saturn and Saturn's influences. And after Saturn, we'll get into the nodes of the moon, and we'll even talk about the outer planets a bit, because the outer planets are very useful to consider in Vedic astrology.